Well, that was really, really ugly if you're a West Virginia fan. Thankfully, it's over. But Texas Tech comes into Morgantown, destroys West Virginia in the season finale, and we're going to have you covered here on Mountaineer Moment for this game recap. This is the Mountaineer Moment, your source for all things West Virginia football and basketball. From pregame to postgame coverage and breaking news, we've got you covered. Let's go. All right, welcome in, everybody, to episode number 102 here of Mountaineer Moment, your source for all things West Virginia football and basketball. And West Virginia hosted the Texas Tech Red Raiders on Saturday afternoon in Morgantown, a chilly day and a brutal game to watch, brutal performance from the Mountaineers. As a matter of fact, the game's still going on. It's still in the fourth quarter, but I couldn't help it. I had to get on here and record because Texas Tech scoring another touchdown or two or three really isn't going to change much of, just how you feel watching this game. So Mountaineers get destroyed in every sense of the word. Texas Tech, obviously we knew they were the better team, not sitting here thinking we were expecting to win or even expecting for it to be close. But even with that, that low of a bar, Mountaineers still couldn't meet that. This was ugly. This was really, really bad. You expected it to be bad, but this was worse than bad. You know what I mean? Like, this was that kind of performance. But again, we'll get into that. I'll give you some details in this short episode. But obviously, we recap and preview and talk analysis and break down every single Mountaineer game, including the really tough ones. So Mountaineers fall to 4-8 on the season, and that'll do it. That's a wrap. This is a Mountaineer show that started right at the beginning of this football season with that Robert Morris game way back in August, and here we are 3 months later, and Mountaineer season is over. But with that, I will encourage you to hit that subscribe button for us, whatever platform, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, as we continue to grow this Mountaineer Moment community. Episode 102. Just said, we've been at this thing for 3 months. I feel like I say it every episode, but you can tell we are passionate and committed here on Mountaineer Moment, and we expect, hopefully for you to join this growing community. So hit that subscribe button. And yeah, Texas Tech just scored again. So 49 is their point total now. Crazy stuff. But just start to finish, dominant performance from Texas Tech. I'll give you a few things that stick out. We'll talk about. All right, that's it for the Mountaineer season. Now what? We'll give you a little preview into that. We'll talk about that, obviously, in the coming weeks and in the offseason and all that fun stuff. Talk about this Texas Tech team, the fact that they are legit, and we knew that, but obviously we see it against West Virginia today, and then just some numbers that indicate just how ugly this performance was. Well, for starters, West Virginia, it was a joke episode, right? If you remember watching that recent episode that we had here on Mountaineer Moment, talking about, all right, well, if the stars aligned, if West Virginia could somehow, some way pull it off, it sounds even funnier now that we know the score of this game. You would have to have so many things go your way, just fluke plays, turnovers. Someone has to have a monster day offensively. You have to be able to run the football. Well, West Virginia simply could not run the football today. Not even sure they'll hit 10 yards on the ground today. That's how bad it was. Again, if you're just jumping in, recording this one while the game is still going on in the fourth quarter, because not much is going to change. Texas Tech with a massive, massive lead as they close in on 50 points. Insane. Absolutely insane. So Baron Morton for Texas Tech played a first half and then one drive, and he eclipsed the 300-yard mark, 25 of 32, extremely efficient, 3 touchdowns. Lloyd Jones got in on the action. He's got a couple touchdowns throwing on 2 of 2 so far for him. Still going to probably keep going. But Scotty Fox in the offense, 13 of 23, 98 yards for him. Max Brown came in, threw a pick. Khalil Wilkins, getting some action as well. But Texas Tech, the 5th-ranked team in the country, and you see why. And again, we're not sitting here saying we didn't know that they were good, but man, oh man, it looked like a college team against a high school team. Like, it seriously did. This was that bad of a performance from West Virginia, and just miserable. The only person of note that did anything is Jeff Weimer, 5 catches for him. I mean, there's not that much to talk about. You just got dismantled. Couldn't run the ball. couldn't throw the ball, couldn't stop the run, couldn't stop this team from Texas Tech from doing what they needed to do. And obviously they're on a clash course next weekend for the Big 12 title game against BYU, a team that they already beat this season. And I think you learn a few things, though. I'll skip down toward the bottom of this outline. I think you learn a few things about West Virginia. Not that you're already, not that you're learning anything like super new at this point in the season, at the end of the season, but this was, and I don't know if I'll catch flack for this or what, because West Virginia did play BYU and Utah. We know that. This is West Virginia's first time going against an elite team. BYU, obviously, very, very good. Utah, very, very good. But Texas Tech destroyed BYU. Obviously, Utah, too. And Texas Tech is so good. And so this was West Virginia's first game. Again, just they're going to get a bye in the CFP if they take care of business against BYU. Like, they're that good. And they proved it, again, in blowout fashion against the Mountaineers. And so you learn just where you're at against, like, elite competition. We knew where we were at as West Virginia fans against, like, really good competition, against really good teams. But against elite competition, now you see where you're at, and it's not a very good look because you got flat out dismantled by Texas Tech in this football game. Absolutely embarrassed, and a tough pill to swallow. Even though you expected to swallow a pill, this one's still pretty tough. Texas Tech is that good. I mean, their receivers are so good. We came in talking about their running backs, Cameron Dickey, Jacoby Williams, who showed out today as well. Each with over 10-plus carries and a lot of yards, well over 100 yards combined for them. Caleb Douglas, 120-plus yards, 2 touchdowns for him. Couldn't stop him. Terrence Carter had double-digit catches, about 100 yards for him. Micah Hudson, 2 touchdowns for him. Highly touted recruit, the sophomore wide receiver who hadn't caught a touchdown to date this season, but he gets 2 against West Virginia, and on and on and on and on and on. But you couldn't stop this team. And throughout that first half, right, it was 21-0 before you could get a sip of your beer, right? Like, this was nuts because they just came out the gates and threw it on you. But in the first quarter alone, third downs were the story, right? As they jumped out to a 21-0 lead, well, they were 6 of 7 on third downs in the first quarter. The lone third down stop that the Mountaineers did get, turned into a fourth down conversion for Texas Tech in that first quarter. Texas Tech was perfect, flawless in that first quarter. And West Virginia was the opposite, couldn't get a first down. And so it just, you obviously when you play against elite competition and you're just a big-time underdog, chances are you're going to have to get off to a good start. And West Virginia did just the opposite of that. Texas Tech couldn't be stopped, and West Virginia couldn't pick up a yard. That's literally the description of how this game went. And then, Texas Tech, just continues that in the second quarter. Continued to move the ball. West Virginia picked off Jacob Rodriguez, by the way, who is their leading tackler, who threw a who ran it in for a touchdown. And then they put him back in near the goal, and he threw a pick. As they're just kind of toying with West Virginia, and it was just ugly. I don't know how much longer this episode is going to be, but it was ugly. And third down, again, there's a million different issues on the field, but the thing you notice from that first half, while it was in the process of getting out of hand and then it got out of hand, the biggest thing to know was Texas Tech's third down efficiency. There was a 3rd and 15 draw play that they converted for a first down. 3rd and longs that you kept getting them in, and then they kept picking them up, which is so frustrating against a normal team, right? But now you do it against an elite team like Texas Tech, and they just continue to make you pay by third down conversion after third down conversion. And so, again, they're legit, and we knew that. And I think they're good for the Big 12 because, I'm going to root for them the rest of the way. I mentioned to someone in the comment section on a video I did earlier this week previewing this matchup, aside from Saturday from 12 to 3, I'm going to root for Texas Tech, I don't got no bad blood for them, and, we'll see what they can do. I root for them to make some noise in the CFP and see what they can do. But this team is legit. We talked a lot about their defensive front and their ability to just stuff the run, and they did that time and time and time again against West Virginia. Simply, just could not run the football. And speaking of that, to like a lesson that you learn about this team, a lesson we learned from the very start of the season was West Virginia's offensive line and their struggles and their woes and pass protection and run blocking. When you play against an elite team like Texas Tech, that was just exploited even more. Like it was that bad. It was that bad. So as you look forward to the next season, and obviously we're going to have tons and tons and tons of time to talk about next season for the Mountaineers, until next August, right? Crazy amount of time that we're going to have. But as you think about it, like what you were worried about, if you remember, what you were worried about and I was worried about coming into the season was this offensive line. Not that this loss is all on the offensive line, but the offensive line continued to be really, really bad. And, it's almost like I'm thankful that they were so bad, even again, just to prove the point and the great need. Obviously, West Virginia gets Kevin Brown, a huge signing, commitment, flipping him from Penn State, and, other guys on the way. And you have to rebuild this team. You have to rebuild this offensive line. It starts up front. And, again, this loss against Texas Tech in blowout fashion, just start to finish, as bad as it gets. As bad as a performance as you can have. Literally, it was that bad, that unbearable to watch. But in that, you get a reminder just how bad this offensive line is and just how great the need is for you to get right, to get guys up there and fix it. It starts on the offensive line, right? Is Scotty Fox the answer next year? Is he going to be the starting quarterback? Are we going to go to the portal? Is Jaheim White coming back? Is Jaden Bray coming back? Are we going to flip Chris Henry? Like there's all sorts of things out there, floating around. But ultimately, to me, it starts up front. And those answers, we're going to get about these other players and potentially coming back or recruiting them and who we're going to add to this offense and this defense, because they got a lot of people to replace too. Right? And that's a conversation for another day. But what we do know is this is it. The 2025 Mountaineer football season is in the books, and they went 4-8, and it was ugly for the majority of the season. It was really, really bad. And, we're going to get to eventually, this week or the next week, kind of like a full-on season recap. Not that you want to relive this whole thing, because if you're anything like me, you want to put this thing to bed and move on to 2026. But, you got to look yourself in the mirror and say, this was the season that West Virginia had, and it was really, really bad. And what are they going to do moving forward? Again, conversation for another day, but this is it. The 2025 season is in the books. Disappointing year, riddled with injuries, riddled with blowout losses, and inability to run the ball, carousel at the quarterback position. Again, you name it, this team struggled with it, and it's indicative by their record, 4-8, and a blowout loss is a fitting way to end this season for the Mountaineers, just getting absolutely dismantled by the Texas Tech Red Raiders, one of the best teams in the country, by the way, and they looked like it today, and West Virginia looked like they didn't belong on the same field. In every sense of the word, did not belong on the same field as Texas Tech. Embarrassing. Doesn't matter how much you've struggled this year, like that is inexcusable, that performance that you put forth. So, Mountaineers fall to Texas Tech in the season finale. I've said all I could say. But be on the lookout for more content. Of course, West Virginia basketball in full swing. Mercyhurst preview of that one coming up Sunday afternoon. We'll have a preview of that game coming out tonight. All right, so be on the lookout for that episode coming out tonight. And then, of course, we'll have you covered post-game. And throughout the week, we'll get into more basketball. And again, of course, as promised, we are going to continue this conversation on football. Maybe not right in the middle of a game or at the end of a game, but maybe one just takes a breather and says, okay, let's look at this season as a whole. Let's look at some of these needs. What does West Virginia need to do? And let's truly, truly evaluate this season for what it was worth and move forward to 2026. So obviously you can look forward to that conversation coming your way here on Mountaineer Moment. Again, hit that subscribe button. This is your source for all things West Virginia football and basketball, and we'll see you next time.